Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the last session of session 6 of this series, talking about Lennon and having that conversation with her with the supports. We are looking at today outcome number 20, people choose personal goals, 21, people realize personal goals, and then we go back to number 8 for respect. We will be recording, as Seth told you, and we kind of go through the whole process. I'll just update those of you that have not actually been on the call before, that I will read through each of the scenarios with Lennon, and then we will do the recording and polling at the end of both outcome and support, but I'll give you a little more guidance on that when we get to those. So we will go on to the next slide. And we are CQL, Community, Dignity, Opportunity, and Community for all people, and dedicated to the definition, measurement, and improvement of personal quality of life. The last of the decision-making series, again, personal goals, realizing, and respect. Lennon, again, is 31 years old, lives in an apartment, works at Pizza Hut, likes to shop a lot. Her favorite things include shoes, bohemian clothing and decorations, hosting dinner parties, and baking bread. Her interests include flower gardening, acting, and photography. She's not married, has no children, and has twin nieces, Ashley and Taylor. So far for the results, as you can see them as we go down, you will see that people are respected. Number 8 is simply to be determined, and that will be determined today. So far, these are the things that we have seen. Again, in my community, participation will be a type and frequency, and that's where she said that she was not satisfied with the type and frequency of her participation. Natural supports was that she would like to have contact with Ashley and Taylor. The organization was assisting her to a point of that. Friends, intimacy were both type and frequency. Personal information was the electronic portion of paperwork, as well as she does not want her family to receive information about her, although they are guardians. Social roles, she wasn't quite sure and had some ideas about what she might like to investigate and explore. Her choices, where and with whom to live, she lives in her own apartment, made that choice, and has told us she is never moving. She has some ideas about some different things of work that she'd like to do. She's been with Pizza Hut about 3 years, and so there were some other things that she thought maybe she'd like to explore. Using services with guardianships, she does not always have the full range of options to choose all of her services. And we will be going on with choosing goals and realizing goals. So in choosing personal goals, and we are on, for the decision making, we are on page 80 of the manual. You want to follow on then, because we're going to be looking at the questions and the supports for the outcomes and supports. But during our conversation, we learned that Lennon bakes bread and might be interested in a new job at a bakery. She might like to work in a nursery center, spring through fall. She has fond memories of working with her grandmother in the family garden. Lennon works at Pizza Hut. However, at Pizza Hut, she would like to make and bake the pizzas there. She has not been able to do so. If you remember from choosing her job, they're afraid that she might burn herself. She, however, does not think that. Next page. During our conversation, we also learned she is interested in flowers and exploring joining a gardening or flower club. She might like to take a class in designing floral arrangements and designing garden beds. She would like to bake bread more often, the old-fashioned way, like she did with her grandmother. She might enjoy different activities in her community. She didn't know a lot about some of the activities, although the staff and organization does give her some ideas about what's going on a monthly sort of calendar that she can be involved in. But she wasn't quite sure. She doesn't actually like to go new places or do things by herself. One of the issues for that is that we have found in the past that her friends and the friends that she wants to do these things with have some restrictions about not going out without staff. And although she does not have that, her friends can't go just with her. There always has to be a staff person along. We also learned that she wants to see her friends more often without staff. She would like contact with her nieces, Ashley and Taylor. We talked a little bit about that. It doesn't seem to be a big priority for her right now because she doesn't want to be involved with any other family members. She has a new relationship. She likes this person a lot. She did not want to talk about it right now, but she does want to see this person more often and without staff. So we asked Lennon, what's most important for you right now, today? And she said that doing things with her friends without staff was a high priority for her. Having someone else help with decisions, besides the guardian that she has now, she would like a new guardian, but doesn't even know if she needs one, and baking bread at home. She also said she wants it all. And then with staff, our follow-up with staff about those things that we learned with Lennon during the conversation, that she has a program to separate junk mail from bills and those that might be from family. And historically, family has asked for money. And so this was something she truly wants to do, and she wants to do that by herself at some point. They said she likes to shop, so they thought that was probably a personal goal. And then again, her favorite things, they knew these things about what Lennon liked and didn't like. They knew she was interested in flower gardening, acting, and photography. And now Lennon didn't talk about acting and photography, but certainly did about flower gardening. And again, she would like to see Ashley and Taylor. Staff knew that. So they thought those were the things that she would be choosing as her personal goals. So based on the information, what we will do here is that we'll go through the questions, and then if you all would please just mark somewhere whether the outcome is present or not based on the information that you have, and then we'll go through the supports. You do the same thing, and then we will poll. So based on the information gathered, the meetings and everything that you heard, have Lennon's priorities regarding goals been solicited? Does Lennon choose her personal goals? And are they the goals that she is working toward? If the answers to 1, 2, and 3 are yes, the outcome is present. So if you will please just mark on somewhere that decision. And then we will go on to the decision-making for supports. I'm sorry, a formal service planning process is not required for the outcome to be present. However, remember that if a formal service planning process is not required, everyone still needs to know and be working toward those things with Lennon. So the support questions. Does the organization know the goals that Lennon has identified for herself, or are efforts being made to learn about those goals? Does the organization provide supports and services to assist Lennon in pursuing those goals? Based on the answers to these questions, are individualized supports in place that facilitate this outcome for Lennon? For this process, you do not need to differentiate between the no's. It's either going to be yes or no. Again, those developing plans and aware but no plans We have put those in for individual organizations and individuals themselves to know when there has been progress made toward those. So just for this facilitation, it'll be yes or no. So if you will please mark your answers, and then we'll talk about it a little bit, and you'll be able to ask questions if you need clarification. We are going to be closing the poll here in just a couple seconds. So the results for Lennon is the outcome present for choosing her goals. 44% or 33 people indicated that it chose yes, and 56% or 42 people said no. The supports, 28% said the supports are in place, and 72% or 54 of those of you polled said no. The answers are that neither the outcome nor support is present. Now, there were a lot of things that Lennon was choosing for her goals, or had some interest in those, and the top three that she had chosen, there were not, the staff didn't really seem to have a really good idea about a number of those. Many of those were new to them, and the ones that they had actually said, although flower gardening was there was no action involved in them knowing that. So the asking of that, the AA and the EEEs were not in place for her to have those supports in place. Are there questions?
So yeah, there was someone who asked regarding the decision-making questions related to supports. When it states in any of those questions, does the organization know? Does that mean, do they know now, or did they know before asking?
It would be present tense and the snapshot of today. So that would be one of those asking, how are they gathering that information? And granted, if I'm hearing you correctly, it may be that it was brand new today, which is okay, and which is an exciting part of the process of using personal outcomes. Because if we would have asked perhaps one more question, it might have brought us toward that. But it's the third one are the goals the person is working toward, those that she has chosen today in this snapshot. And of course, the personal outcomes are that fluid and should be very flexible. So, and how does an organization actually take this information now and get it into something that she can be working on and working towards tomorrow? And as we all know, it might change tomorrow too, and certainly her priorities might change tomorrow, but it is a snapshot. It's not right or wrong. It's just no. It might just be new. Is that effort?
Person, Jill? Oh, I'm sorry, bud.
I was just going to say it's that efforts being made to learn about it, and how that process goes kind of in a fluid sort of way. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Seth.
Oh, and that same person followed up with a question of, so would that be present or an opportunity if you just found out today?
It would be an opportunity for both the outcome and support because it's brand new.
Someone had asked about us providing the number of people voting. It was a total of 75 attendees who voted total.
On the poll, and I don't think we can pull it back up, Seth, but in the parentheses, that's how many the votes are with the percentage. So there were 33 people that voted yes, 42 people that voted no, and then we have the percentages there. So with that, we will go on to people realize personal goals. Lennon's, as you can tell by this, Lennon was very excited to be in her own apartment. She had worked very hard to get there. She had chosen the apartment complex. She had to be on a waiting list to get into the apartment, just as you or I would if there were no openings. and she waited on that. She was in a group setting before that, and she waited on it and waited on it, and she has moved within within the last year or two. I think it's been about a year, and that was something that she still is celebrating about. And for the supports, there was and continues to be a celebration all over the place. Every time she talks about it, every time she needs something, she's calling the director of the complex if she needs anything. She's got it. She's like, I'm living the life. And everybody knows that. It was a very, very exciting time for her. So I hope that gives you enough information if Lennon has accomplished something that is significant to her in the past year or two. If the answer to one is yes, the outcome is present. The additional consideration for Lennon is that she has accomplished a personal milestone within the past year or two. So if you'll mark down whether you think it's present or not, and then for the supports, has the organization identified those accomplishments and assisted her to celebrate the achievement of personal milestones? Based on the answers to the questions, are supports in place, yes or no? And we'll go to the poll.
Poll is launched.
Very good. So as you can see from the poll, 80 people voted on the outcome. 94% said it was present, 6% said it was not. Supports in place to realize those goals. Of the 80 people, again, who voted, 93% said it was in place and 8% said it was not in place. The answer to this is yes, the outcome is present, and yes, the support is present. For this outcome, for them to have realized one thing that is significant to them and have their support staff and the organization also see that is significant and continue to celebrate that, it makes both the outcome and support in place and present. Very good. It's always very exciting to have people realizing something that they've worked very hard on to get and then to achieve that. So we are going on to respect. When we talk about respect, and the reason that we leave it to the end for decision making is that it really does encompass the whole person and kind of all, not kind of, but all of the things that we look at. And for respect, we will be on page 37 for the decision making. And so we're looking at those sort of things that are that pattern of respect that we see for those interactions and for those enhancements and the challenging and interesting. So when Lennon was asked during our conversation, when I asked her about respect, and I don't always just ask, what is respect or are you respected? But after we spoke a bit, she said that she is respected. And then I asked her, what does that mean to you? And she responded, if I am nice to people, they will be nice to me. And so if you will go on to the next slide, please. So there's lots of information here. So Lennon, although saying that she's respected, she had many concerns from the whole interview. And so we just wanted to go back and make sure that we had these things in place. So she said she didn't want a family member to be her guardian, and the guardian is a family member. She said that she didn't want any information shared with her family, but we continue to send information to her guardian, who is a family member, including her annual plan, her medical information, things about her relationship, and finances. She's been concerned with that for more than a year, but neither Lennon nor her staff knew exactly when she had asked for a change. Right now, she would like one of her staff members to be a guardian But of course, that doesn't work. So they are continuing to look, but it's been a long time. Then Lennon was talking about she didn't really know if she actually needed a guardian because she knew that a guardian can make her do things that she may not want to do, but not exactly sure what those things might be. She said again that she feels respected, and we saw that interactions with her are and were respectful during the time. However, staff had little knowledge of the interests that Lennon had to explore a variety of roles, options for other jobs, and or relationships when asked about those things. She was free from abuse and neglect. She had best possible health. She lives in integrated environments. These are the outcomes from the previous. She interacts with other members of the community to her satisfaction. She chooses where and with whom to live, and she realized personal goals. There were supports present throughout the interview that also she was free from abuse and neglect, also that best possible health was in place for her, that she interacted with other members of the community, that she was connected to natural support networks, not connected, but the supports were there to continue to try and talk to her about when she wants to look into the Taylor and Ashley, the niece issue. She chooses where and with whom to live, and she realized personal goals. Now, based on these, and we want to talk about these a bit, so personal outcome questions is Lennon treated with respect by family members? And if you see, it's not asking if she feels respected. It is an overarching, that umbrella of, are we seeing this? Is there evidence that we can say from all of the conversation that we had that she is treated with respect by family members? And think back on what we've talked about. Residential support staff, roommates or housemates, which she does not have right now. Employment support staff, day staff, her co-workers, medical professionals. She does not have adult education class, so she has no classmates, business community members, therapists, counselors, neighbors, and or others. Do those interactions with others reflect concern for Lennon's opinions, feelings, and preferences? And does Lennon have opportunities to participate in challenging and interesting activities? For this, if you will please make your decision and mark that somewhere so that when we do the polls, you will remember. The additional considerations for respect are an isolated example of disrespectful interactions or practices does not automatically mean the outcome is not present, but services, supports, activities, and interactions must enhance Lennon's self-image and promote a positive image to others in order for that outcome to be present, along with all the other present from 7.1.1. So the individualized supports, 7A, does the organization know what is important to Lennon with regard to respect? Does the organization, the follow-up conversations, act to ensure that interactions with Lennon are respectful? Have supports needed to enhance Lennon's self-image been identified and implemented? Based on the answers to these questions, are supports in place to facilitate this outcome for Lennon? Remember, it's a yes and no. We will launch the poll in just a moment. So if you're looking at the polling results, there were 18 people, or 21% of those of you that voted, that said the outcome is present, and 66 people, or 79% of those of you that voted, said it is not present. Supports in place for Lennon to be respected. 17 of you, or 20%, said that no, the supports are not in place. I'm sorry, yes, that the supports are in place. And 80%, or 67 of you that voted, said it was not in place. The outcome and support for respect are not present that does not mean that there are not some respectful things. And this is where we can talk about respect a little bit more, is that with respect, as we're looking at those questions, again, it's the treatment and making sure that there are the little R's for her, those daily niceties and those daily sort of things, and a few big things are respectful of her accomplishments and those things. But there's the bigger R than the big respect of what is it that's challenging for Lennon? What is it that the supports need to do in order to have that respect of all the things that Lennon's talking about? What is the system that the organization has in order to glean that information from Lennon and be sure that those goals that she has are truly the goals that she wants? And we've got one about the mail, but we've got, guardianship, and that's been quite a bit of time, and relationships, and a lot of the type of frequencies that, although they knew that she didn't want to be with staff when she was out with her friends, historically we found that those things, that there had been a couple calls made to various providers that her friends work with and are supported by, and they've just kind of said, well, we really can't do that because her friends have these restrictions. And so there were just a number of things that Lennon really wanted that were fairly high priorities, especially after speaking with those goals. And that was one of her big ones that had been brought up throughout the 6 months and throughout the 6 sessions. So we're looking for that whole pattern of respect and systems that support that for her. Again, we cannot own her outcome, but we certainly own the support part of it. So we're just kind of missing that asking, acting, and the systems in this particular case that explore, educate, and experiential sort of living for her. So with that being said, I will take any questions that you might have.
Yeah, there are a few. There's one that I can answer. Someone asked again for us to provide the number of people voting for this survey. For this one, it was 84. And the last one they had also asked, I believe it was a little bit less. I think it was 80. So another question. If evidence suggests that the person is respected, but the person says that they don't feel respected, how is their answer taken into consideration for the outcome being present?
It would be very much taken into, especially with that scenario, and we would be asking a few more questions, and we would be going through some of those things of, is it your family, is it staff, is it roommates? We're not asking for names particularly, unless there would be something that would rise to the level of abuse, neglect, mistreatment, or exploitation that would fall under this, and that it might not have fallen under abuse and neglect. So we would be talking about those things on 7.1 of who and where and how. There you go. Thank you, Seth. Is it medical? Is it business, community? Is it your counselors, your neighbors? Who is it, and how is that feeling? And then we would go on from there. So we would still need some more information, but generally it would be that the outcome would not be present if they said absolutely not, I am not. And then again, with the support, we would be talking to the support and the organization about how do you know and how are you finding out. If you go on to the support questions here, that how do you know what's important to Lennon, and how do you see that with those interactions?
And to kind of go along with that, and you kind of covered it, Jill, but maybe you could expand even a little bit more. Someone, right as you were sharing that, asked if you could share a little bit more about what would need to occur to make the support present for Lennon.
We would be looking for that system that they have asked. When it says, does the organization know what is important? Our expectations for the POMs would be that we would need to, the organization would need to know that there would be some system in place, that there would be an asking and an action. The AAAs, they know what's important to her about her guardian and about so specific for her to answer that question. We would need to see it probably in this particular, and I can't say for sure that I am getting to everything that we would need to look at, but certainly about the guardianship and seeing her friends and her new relationship, of how we are figuring that out with her, and ensuring the interactions. They had the training for their staff, and they had all of those things in place of being respectful and doing the A&E and knowing what to report and all of those things. But we're looking for those larger, challenging, interesting sort of things that Lennon sees as important, that we should know. Again, it's kind of hard with just a small scenario, but there would be lots of discussion. Certainly if someone said they were not respected, that would move us into a flag, kind of a red flag. Well, what's up? Is it? Yeah, that's all I'll say for that.
And a question from a different person that kind of ties to that same kind of support area. They stated that they keep thinking about the Pizza Hut job example, and how she's not really getting a chance to try or have adaptive options to keep her away from burns from the oven. What would advocacy look like for support in regards to that example with Pizza Hut?
Well, she has already asked them, and the manager had said that he's afraid that, or I can't remember if it was a man or a woman, said that they're afraid that she'll be burned. And in the discussion, in the session that we had on that, it was that she said, well, I know how to use the mitts. I can, I can do all of those, and I'm really safe with it. Advocacy would be, what are we doing employment-wise of going in and saying, well, what's our next step? What can we do to make sure that she's as safe as any other employee? And simply because she is associated with our organization, is that part of why we're afraid to give her a chance? And what can we start with her just making them? And what is the problem there? And making them and putting them on the conveyor belt that goes in, and maybe not taking it off. But what's the next step that would make her feel more a part of that process, instead of just kind of cleaning off the tables? And she delivers pizza to the tables once in a while when they're really busy. So we would be advocating for what can we do, and checking with Lennon on, is that a good start? This is one of the shorter ones we've had, and it is the end of the decision-making series. Again, if you want to, if your evenings are empty and you want to look over all the other 5 sessions, they are recorded, and you can stay in touch. Thank you. I think Kathy and I are certainly thinking of doing another session sort of thing next year. And have a lovely fall. Stay warm this winter. And thank you very much for staying with us through this whole 6-month session.